find 2.5% of 3,000 students. So we're trying to figure out how many students that would mean if we were trying to find 2.5% of them. Anytime we have a situation where we're finding a percent of some value, and this is also going to be true if we would have a fraction of some value, and some of you may remember this from your arithmetic class. A percent of or a fraction of some number, that of will always mean to multiply. Now be careful, just because the word of is in there someplace doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be multiplication. It has to be specifically a percent of some value or a fraction of some value. That's telling us we're going to multiply. But we're not just going to multiply by the 2.5, we're going to multiply by the decimal form. Okay, because we know that 2.5% is not the same thing as 2.5, so we're going to be sure to change that to the decimal form, okay, of the percent. So, what's the decimal form of 2.5? Well, if you remember, we want to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. That's going to give us one empty spot, so 0.025. And because this is a decimal number that doesn't have a whole number portion, always a good idea to put in that 0 there. Remember we said that of means multiply, and so what we're going to do is we're going to put this 3,000 in parentheses. We're going to use what's called juxtaposition. So juxtaposition is where we ram two things right up next to each other. That indicates that multiplication is going on. So I call that juxtaposition. That's what's going on there. That's how you spell juxtaposition. Juxtaposition. So now we need to do the multiplication. So depending on how your instructor wants you to work this, they may want you to work it longhand, or they may be okay with you working it on the calculator. If we were to work it longhand, here's how I would set it up. I would put the 0.025 on top because it has more non-zero digits. And then when I do the multiplication, I would take that 3,000 and I would offset those zeros. So when I do the multiplying, the zeros are just going to come straight down. Okay, 0, 0, 0. Now I do my multiplication. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6 and 1 is 7. And then doing 3 times 0, 3 times 0, that's not going to do anything besides throw zeros on here, so I'm not even going to bother to do that. And then I need to count up how many decimal places do I have. I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places to account for. 1, 2, 3. So my final answer would be 75. And we can see that if we do that on the calculator, let me just pull the calculator up here. Remember we had 0.025 times 3,000. If we work that out, we end up with the same 75. Now be sure, remember we were being asked to find how many students, find 2.5% of 3,000 students. So we would want to be sure for our answer here that we would say that this is 75 students. We want to be sure that we put that label onto our final answer. And if we want to really be thorough, we could say 75 students is 2.5% of 3,000 students, just to remind us where this answer came from. And there it is.